Hello. Hello, police. Yeah, what's the problem, sir? We just drove down our farm track. Yeah. Go and feed our pheasants. We come across a Range Rover with 3 people in it. Yeah. It appears that they're dead. I don't know what's happening. Blood in the motor all over them.
And welcome back to a new video on the Essex Boys case. As always, if you are enjoying the content, please do give the video a thumbs up. And if you're interested in the Essex Boys case, or simply true crime in general, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. And in this video, we continue on by looking into the potential guilt of Michael Steele and Jack Wombs concerning the murders of Patrick Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe. Firstly, let's start by taking a look at a small section of the police interview conducted with Sarah Saunders, which talks about the threat on Michael Steele's life. The following is a small section of the police interview conducted with Sarah Saunders. The interviewing officer here is DC Norton, and he is quizzing Sarah Saunders regarding Pat Tate's threats against Michael Steele. DC Norton asks her, what did he actually say about what he was going to do to Michael Steele? Saunders replies, he didn't say what he was going to do. He just laughed and said he would not be coming back. And what did you take that to mean, Sarah? Well, that something would happen to Mick. That something would happen? Yeah. And what would that be? Well, I don't know. I just knew that something would happen to him and he wouldn't come back. Meaning that he would be killed? Yeah. How soon after did you meet Michael to tell him? I phoned him up, I think, that afternoon and told him afterwards. I went and met him. Where did you meet him? At the A12. I think there's a McDonald's up there near Chelmsford. I phoned him up on his mobile and asked him to meet me. Now, when taking a look at that small section of Sarah Saunders' police interview there, it's not so much what's being said in the broader sense. It's not so much the fact that Tate has turned up at Saunders' house and told her, you know, sort of laughing and said, you know, Michael Steele's going to be going up north and he won't be coming back. She said, well, but, you know, he's your friend, you know. She was obviously very concerned by what Pat Tate said to her. I think it was in her kitchen when Tate said this to her, that Steele would be going up north, he wouldn't be coming back. Basically, a sort of a veiled threat against Michael Steele. But it's not really that that's capturing my imagination. It's the fact that she mentions here that she called Michael Steele and they agreed to meet on the A12 in a McDonald's car park. I think at this point in time that Tate was a complete loose cannon. Certainly towards the back end of 1995, I would say the best way that you could describe Tate, according to the statements, the newspaper articles and everything else that I've read on this man, the best word to describe him would be volatile. We had the pizza parlour incident where he beat up the manager there. We've heard numerous beatings or numerous accounts of him throwing his weight around, particularly or even against Sarah Saunders, his on and off girlfriend at the time, chucking her out of her house, chucking her clothes out of the door, screaming and shouting, ranting and raving, was commonplace. Clearly at this point in time, even Michael Steele wasn't particularly safe from Pat Tate's wrath. What would be the need to arrange a meeting just off the A12 at McDonald's if Pat Tate was this, I guess, sane or reasonable individual? Now, the way that it was portrayed in court, at least by the defence, was that the relationship between these 4 people, Pat Tate, Sarah Saunders, Michael Steele and Jackie Street, the way that their relationship was portrayed, at least by the defence counsel, was that of a relatively normal relationship. 2 couples who got on fairly well, who went out together sometimes or socialised together. Michael Steele helped Sarah Saunders move out, had control of Tate's finances whilst he was in prison and helped her with money from time to time on Tate's behalf. But is that really the case? Clearly we know there was great friction between Sarah Saunders and Pat Tate. But what we've always been told, at least from, as I say, the defence's point of view, was that the relationship between Steele and Tate was that of a good one. Even the fact that he had helped Saunders move house, he had been fairly close to Sarah Saunders, him and Jackie Street, that didn't seem to pose too much of an issue. So what exactly was this need to meet on the A12? Why not simply pop to her house? Why didn't she pop to his house? It's almost like they're trying to meet in secret, not in a romantic sense. I don't want, don't get it twisted when I say that. Not in a romantic sense, but in the fact that they're almost worried that they may be seen by Tate, that Tate might turn up and Steele will be there and it will cause this friction or this issue. It's almost like she wants to tell him this information somewhere out the way where Tate couldn't possibly be, or the likelihood of Tate showing up would be minimal. Now, I'm not for one moment saying that this veiled threat would be enough to instigate triple murder or be enough motive for a triple murder, and I guess I never really have bought into that idea. It's something that's portrayed in a lot of books, a lot of the documentaries and, films regarding the case, that Michael Steele was afraid for his life, that Sarah Saunders told him that Tate was going to kill him, yet Steele then got in the Range Rover. I've never really bought into any of that personally. But what I do think this shows is that the relationship between these individuals, at least Saunders, Steele and Tate, as a triplet, I was going to say a threesome, but that just sounds terrible, as a triplet, wasn't as easygoing, wasn't as on good terms as it was portrayed in court. Now, interestingly, when we move on in the police interview with Sarah Saunders, the topic of Pat Tate's brother Russell is raised, and it's in this part of the interview that DC Norton asks the following. What does Russell feel about all this, about Mickey Steele? Saunders replies, well, I haven't spoken to him. He's written to me. I haven't spoken to him yet. I was going to see him to see what he thinks because he said to tell Sarah to stop being so naive to Debbie, his wife, and to give me a message. Naive? Yeah. About what, Sarah? Well, about all this, because, I just said to Debbie, Russell's wife, that, Mick's not capable of doing that. And Russell said to Debbie, tell Sarah to stop being so naive. So interestingly, there does appear to have been some communication between Russell Tate and his wife Debbie and Sarah Saunders, and Russell Tate has basically said to Sarah Saunders, or to pass on a message to Sarah Saunders saying, tell Sarah to stop being so naive. Now, obviously we can't speak for Pat Tate's brother in this day and age, but back when these interviews took place, it's clear there that Russell Tate was telling Sarah to stop being so naive regarding her opinion of Michael Steele and his capability. Now, I can only speak for myself when I say this, but reading that, it would appear that Russell Tate was blaming Michael Steele for Pat Tate's death. To me, that's quite clear, or at least he's saying there, stop being so naive, Sarah. You don't know what he's capable of. You don't really know the real Michael Steele, as it were. So to me, it looks to me there, at least when I read that Russell Tate believed, at that point in time at least, that Michael Steele was potentially guilty of the murders. So then that brings us on to the relationship between Michael Steele and Pat Tate's brother Russell. Now this in itself is actually a very contentious issue for a lot of people who are interested in this case and viewers of this channel, the very relationship between Russell Tate and Michael Steele after the death of Pat Tate. Would someone really do that? Would someone who had killed someone then involve themselves in more illegal activity, but with the brother of that man that they had killed? Would someone really do that? Well, what I'd ask you to do is to step back from, I guess, the morals of that. Step back from that for one moment and just look at the potential benefits to Michael Steele if he did in fact have something to do with this triple murder. What could the benefits be of aligning yourself with Russell Tate? Now, when I think about this from a logical perspective, the only real thing that comes into my mind in terms of Michael Steele aligning himself alongside Russell Tate for future illegal activity would be the fact that Michael Steele would have an ear on the ground in terms of the progress of the case. Could it be that he actually pallied up or buddied up with Russell Tate in order to try and get some information on how the police investigation was going? Were there any suspects? Were there any leads? Were there any potential people out there who they believed were responsible for the deaths of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe? Really, that's the main benefit that I could see in terms of Michael Steele aligning himself with Russell Tate. The fact that, as I say, he could potentially gain some information that wasn't out there in the press regarding how this investigation was going and what direction, most importantly, this investigation was going. Now, when you look at this from Steele's perspective for one moment, what better way to gain some potential sensitive information or to find out exactly what direction this case is going, where the investigation is heading? What better way to try and gain that information than by befriending a member of their very own family, the family of Pat Tate, working alongside them, conducting illegal activity with them? Was that the reason that Steele decided to work with Russell Tate after these murders? Now, moving away from that topic just for one moment to talk about the planning process again for this triple murder and the actual location which was chosen, as in Workhouse Lane, Rettendon. To me, that was incredibly important and also very well thought out. Now, it's my own personal opinion that this murder had to be committed on a Wednesday. It had to be shortly after 6:30 p.m, regardless of the surrounding weather conditions. The reasons for that are as follows. Number one, there was a popular gun club situated just a couple of hundred yards from where this crime was committed. It was a shooting club. They used shotguns there, so the actual sound of shotgun fire on a Wednesday evening would be commonplace. Now, the most important thing to remember there is that they only shot there at White House Farm on a Wednesday. On a Wednesday up to around 6:30, gunshots were commonplace. They even had lighting to allow them to shoot after dark. So this very location, the bottom of Workhouse Lane near White House Farm, this location was chosen for that very specific purpose, for the fact that these gunshot blasts would blend in with the normal surroundings of a Wednesday evening. Now, for me, on a personal level, if Michael Steele does have some hand in these murders, then this is how it all relates to the statement of Donna Jaggers. We will remember once again, and we will reiterate once again, that in Donna Jaggers' statement, it states the following. Craig told me that the money had been paid to Mickey Steele, who had taken it to Holland. The weather had changed and there was now snow on the ground. Craig told me this was causing them delay and they were waiting for it to clear. Now, the vision I have in my mind, as I say, basing this on the guilt of Michael Steele and Jack Holmes, the vision I have in my mind is of Steele getting a message across somehow, either via Nichols or via Jack Holmes to Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, that the weather has cleared. They're now going to be flying the plane over, they're going to be dropping the parcel and to be down Workhouse Lane after 6:30. And for me, that explains the reason why they are unarmed. They trust Michael Steele, they trust this plane that's coming over, they trust the parcel, and they know it's been done before, or at least attempted before, by the drop which was carried out just a few miles away in West Hanningfield a month earlier. To summarise this particular part in the series, I just don't believe that the relationship between Saunders, Steele and Tate was as rosy as put forward by the defence in court. I certainly believe that the actual location which was chosen for the murders is particularly key, hence the reason I don't really buy into this theory regarding Billy Jasper. I think that this was the whole reason why Workhouse Lane was chosen, because it blended in so well with the common surroundings of that area and the comings and goings of Workhouse Farm and the shooting club. I believe that is key to why this location was chosen. And then once again, back to the statement of Donna Jaggers. To me, this tells me that if they are in fact guilty or played some part in the murders, that this was the very law. There was no robbing of a firm or guns to be taken down there to hold up someone. This was a deal between Steele potentially and these three individuals. This was the simple flying over of an aircraft, dropping a parcel, retrieving that parcel, stashing it away somewhere and making your way off to your meal for 6 people, which was booked for later that evening in Romford. In the next episode, we're going to talk some more about the potential motives for these murders. But once again, thank you for joining me for this particular episode. Do leave your own thoughts and feelings on this video, what I have said, your own personal theories regarding this case. I look forward to seeing you all again in the next video. Take care. Cheers.